Hello, I'm Prometheus. This is Book Zealots. We are going to be doing a review of Inkdeath. We start with Eleanor, Darius, and Orpheus's dog who was left behind in our world. Orpheus left behind a piece of paper he was working on to read himself into Inkheart. That kind of worked, kind of didn't. He was read by Meggie in the previous book. We then move on to Mo, the Black Prince, the Strong Man, a character that we will get to, Snapper, we will also get to him, and Gecko, who controls crows, birds, and other things. The Strong Man also talks to birds, but it's not his thing. I'm sure you can't guess what his thing is. Strong Man. He's obviously a ballerina or something. Then we go on to the Silver Prince, who is enjoying immortality somewhat, despite the fact that Mo in the previous book messed with the book that he bound to trap death, and it's now rotting, causing the Silver Prince to rot as well. The kingdom of the Laughing Prince, where Cosmeo was before he died, is now under the control of Milksop, the Silver Prince's brother-in-law. Violenta has lost her position, Japaco is still the heir, and Sootbird, the strolling player who betrayed the Mo in the previous book when he was in the cave, I didn't mention that, and the Piper is still the herald of the Silver Prince, with Firefox, Slasher, and a few others dead now. Very unfortunate. Piper is the last man of Capricorn. And finally, Orpheus has been reading himself using Inkheart. He finally has his hands on the book. Has been reading himself fairies of rainbow-colored origins, dwarves, unicorns, for Milksop, who is a hunting fanatic. He also has a new bodyguard named Os. Farid has decided to help him in exchange for bringing back Dustfinger, who died in the previous book, and Brianna, Dustfinger's daughter, is working for Orpheus as well. She hates Farid because her father traded his life for him. Oh gosh, where are we going? So Mo has been fighting with Milksop's men, who have been treating the kingdom of that Cosmeo once owned rather polarly under the conditions of war treaties. And Risa's pregnant. That's going to go great. And Maggie is on the fence as to whether or not they should go back or not. Mo wants to see this person, Balbulus, who is an illuminator. That's the word. He is an illuminator. He wants to see his work. So while Risa goes to Roxanne for medicine, Meggie, Mo go to the castle where Balbulus is. Farid, Orpheus go to Fineglio, who has fallen off the wagon when it comes to writing because that whole thing with Cosmeo dying and every man inside a country the size of Slovenia dying, it's caused some issues. Farid then goes to Meggie, Mo goes to Balbulus along with Fineglio. Mo gets captured, Violenta helps him escape. If Mo helps promise that he will kill her father with Violenta's help. This is the Silver Prince's daughter. I'm sure I mentioned that. Okay. The Mo escapes. Farid, Meggie, and Fineglio go back to the strolling players for the Black Princes and Risa and Roxanne. Mo comes back. Orpheus convinces Mo that he can read back Dustfinger, but Mo has to read him back. 2 days later, they meet in a graveyard with Maggie, Risa, Roxanne, Doria, who is the strongman's younger brother, Mo, Orpheus, Farid, Os. The previous night, Orpheus read some paper that will trade Mo for Dustfinger with Death. So Mo reads the words and pop, he's gone. Mo has a quick chat with Death. Death is quite angry at him because he's trapped Death in a book. Mo has trapped Death in a book. So Death says, you either destroy the book and let us get the Silver Prince, or you die and your daughter dies. We're very angry. So Mo says, okay, but Dustfinger has to come back with me as well. Death says, okay, fine. So they show back up. This enrages Orpheus to no end because he is very jealous of Mo. Dustfinger then disappears, takes Inkheart from Mo, saves Farid because Orpheus was going to kill Farid because Farid has led to Dustfinger's death and Orpheus really likes Dustfinger. Oh gosh, I'm completely lost. Where are we? Ah, yes. So as retribution for the raids that Mo has been carrying out and the fact that Dustfinger is now back, the Piper uses Sootbird on market day to lure the greater majority of the children of the country, and then they trap them and imprison them in the dungeons where they stay there for 3 days, at which point Violenta convinces Mo that they will trade him back for the children. Mo surrenders himself to Sootboot and the Piper, at which point the children are released and they go to the strolling players, which they then hide in the cave because they're afraid that they're going to be sent to the silver mines of the Silver Prince. And then Violenta saves Mo from the Piper who was torturing him. They go to her mother's father's old castle, the city in the lake. As they're going there, Dustfinger follows along with Farid, who then goes to the cave. At this point, Eleanor and Darius read themselves into the story where they are chased in the castle city of Umbria, where they eventually run into the strolling players and also get to the cave. Am I following along so far? Yes, good. Yeah. So Orpheus is now very angry at the fact that he's lost the book. He can't write anything properly. And then his dog shows up. This makes him slightly feel better. And then Mortala shows up. Yes, you remember Mortala. She disappeared at the end of the last book because the Silver Prince thought that she poisoned the book and that she escaped using seeds that can apparently change her shape into that of a magpie. Very convenient that these seeds should come into play. Mortala says that she wants to kill the Silver Prince and Mo and everybody else involved in her son's death. She's gone absolutely nuts. She wasn't the most stable person anyway, but now she's really off the bed. And Orpheus says, okay, why not? So Orpheus goes to the Silver Prince and convinces him that he can read different stuff, and so he travels along with the Silver Prince and his new underling and the son of Violenta to go to the Silver Lake to get Mo to fix the book that has been rotting, which is causing the Silver Prince a lot of pain. Mortala then goes up here and convinces Snapper, Gecko, and a few other strolling players that the book, the white book that the Silver Prince has, that Mo bound, isn't just makes you immortal, but makes you insanely rich. And because these people are stupid and greedy, they decide to go along with this as well, and Mortala follows along because she is very frustrated because she has been trying to poison Mo, Meggy, and Risa for the last few months and has failed miserably. Where else? Yes. So as the Silver Prince, Thumbling and Chewbacca go to the Silver Lake to get his book fixed, he sends his brother-in-law, Milksop, who is currently controlling, and Sootbird, yeah, you remember him, the fire player who sucks, I didn't mention him, so you probably won't remember him, to go after the strolling players. The strolling players then convinced that they're coming, need to find a new cave, and Fineglio reads them a tree with human nest that'll fit everybody because that is just perfect. So they go there, they hide up, they crawl in a tree, and if you've seen the Lord of the Rings, this reminds me of the winding stairs, but that's just me. Yes. So finally, the Snapper and the Gecko meet up with the Silver Prince. They screw up royally. Orpheus has convinced Geppetto to give him Finiglio's word, which he had written a bunch of children's stories for this prince when he was back in the court a few years earlier. And he then reads himself a nightmare. This nightmare is nasty. He eats somebody and Mortala gets shot through the heart. Duh. Okay. So Mo and Violenta finally get to the city, at which point these people sneak in through a secret tunnel underneath the city of the lake, which was designed to repel giant attacks. Yes, there were giants apparently at one point. And Dustfinger is killed by the nightmare that Orpheus just read. Risa and the Strongman decide that they want to do something instead of just waiting around, so Risa and the Strongman go walking through the woods, find Mortala's body, because apparently that was on the way. They steal the seeds. Risa turns into a Swift. Yes, Swift. Flies over, sees Dustfinger's body, realizes that Mo has been captured, Violenta is now in a cell, and Chewbacca is just running around. Now, Orpheus takes 2 more books about the Blue Jays, so now he has even more words about the Blue Jay, and he writes a torturous end to the Blue Jay, and that goes horrifically wrong for him. We will get back to them in a second. Now, at the tree, Milksop and hundreds of men and Sootbird finally show up at the tree, at which point Viniglio thinks it's a good idea to call in a giant to take out these men. And the giant shows up, everybody scatters and runs away, because that's what you do when you see a giant. The Black Prince, who has a bear, yes, we didn't mention, this bear refuses to climb the tree, so he's down on the ground. The giant picks up the Black Prince and then drops him on the ground. Viniglio is so enraged that he accidentally falls out of the tree. The giant picks him up, picks up the Black Prince, and then walks away. Then the men of Milksop and Sootbird decide that it's a good idea to come back because now the giant's gone, and then the giant comes back because Roxanne was singing. Apparently she has a beautiful singing voice. The giant set down for the Niglio and the Black Prince. They're fine. The giant comes back. He kicks Sootbird in the face, which obviously kills him instantly. And everybody runs away because now they're just done it. And that's the end of that. Coming back to the city in the lake. Castle in the lake. I can't remember. Ah, yes. In the castle of the lake, Orpheus then decides to ingrain himself even further. He captures Brianna, who went along with Violenta because she decided to quit after Orpheus refused to pay her anymore. Violenta's captured. Dustfinger betrays Mo to this Silver Prince. Mo starts to bind another book. Jepako, who realizes that the Silver Prince just had a son, which means his position as heir has just gone out the window, decides to steal the white book, give it to Mo. Mo writes the 3 words. They all live happily ever after. Kids born 5 months later. That's the end of the book. Thank you for watching. This is Book Zealots. Okay, as a quick side note, the nightmare. I forgot to mention what happened to the nightmare. The nightmare was guarding Brianna, so Dustfinger went to go save his daughter, and then he realized that this nightmare is pretty much unkillable by any normal means, as they are the leftover souls of people who are so evil that death rejected them. That's how evil these people are. And then he realizes that this nightmare looks quite familiar. It's Basta. So he says Basta's name, which just so happens to be the thing that kills the nightmare. That thing runs off. At the very end of the Battle of the City, Violenta and Jepako go back to their city. Thumbling takes over the Castle of the Night, and Orpheus goes into the north, into the mountains, and disappears. Yeah, Sootboot's dead, Milksop runs away. Yeah, I think I got all of them. Okay, I'm done.